The 2025 World Juniors hosted in Ottawa are going to be an absolute circus, and today I wanted to start out the World Junior Prediction Series with Team Canada's roster, which is honestly looking like one of the better ones over the last couple of years. We all know they had a disappointing tournament last time around, losing in the quarterfinals to Czechia, but with a strong World Junior Summer Showcase, a lot of these guys have made an impression already, and I think they will have a better tournament this time around. So we're going to go through the entire roster presented by BetUS, going through all of the players, all the locks, all the hopefuls for this roster, and putting together what I think this team will look like. So make sure you watch till the end for that, and hit that subscribe button for more hockey content throughout the entire offseason, and of course, leading up to the World Juniors this year. Now the thing is, even though there will be a lot of returning players from last year's disappointing World Juniors team, this next team is going to be a lot different in my opinion. They had a big lack of star power last year, and really the big exception was Macklin Celebrini, who was really the only player that was consistently able to generate offense. And you might be wondering now, if Celebrini signed on to the NHL with the Sharks, if offense will continue to be a problem, and it might, but I think it will be a better overall roster than what we saw last year. Now, how today is going to work is that we're going to go through the forwards, defensemen, and goaltending, going through the locks, the players that I think will absolutely make it, and the players that are hopefuls, guys that I think have a chance, but will really have to work hard to earn their spots, and we're going to start here with the forward group. Now, there are 4 different forwards that were on the World Junior team last year that are eligible to return this season, and starting us out, we go on to Brayden Yager, who I think is the biggest lock out of all of them. He was somebody that was a pretty big standout last year for the World Junior team, getting 5 points in 5 games. I would say besides Macklin Celebrini was maybe Canada's most consistent forward. It's not a high bar, but still. And as a 14th overall pick by Pittsburgh, he's somebody that had a pretty massive year last year at Moose Jaw and will continue that onto this year, likely being at least a top 9 center for them this next year. Another player that did play pretty well in last year's World Junior tourney is Matthew Wood, and somebody that I think will also be returning as well. He's somebody that last year got 4 points in 5 games. It was pretty good in that sniper offensive role. I think he'll be even more so in that position now with a lot more power play time and likely to succeed a lot more too. The last 2 are Easton Cowan and Carson Rakoff. I think Easton Cowan is pretty much a lock. I mean, he's somebody that with the diverse play that he has, I think will absolutely be in that top 6. Not really much of a question. Carson Rakoff I think is going to be interesting because I think there's a lot of really good new players onto this Canadian team who offensively are going to fill a lot of roles. We'll get into the lineups in a second, but I think Rakoff could be somebody as an extra or somebody on the top 6. He could be all over the place. We saw last year how he was pretty much an extra, but still played pretty well in the minutes he got. He was really limited in his playing time though, and hopefully he gets a much bigger opportunity this year. Now we have 3 other locks to me on the forward group, guys that will almost 100% make the team this next year. And first up, I got Calum Ritchie, someone that was cut from last year's team, but was exceptional at this last World Junior Summer Showcase. I think is a lock to get a top 6 center role on this team, considering how much he's improved since he was drafted. As a 27th overall pick, he's somebody that I think will easily be in that top 6. He had a great year last year with Oshawa. He's somebody that does have experience still internationally too in the Hlinka Gretzky and the U18 World Juniors. His time is now, and I think he's going to have a great tournament coming up. Next up, we have on the 2024 draft side, Berkly Catton, who I think is also a pretty big lock to have a top 9 center position. I could see a situation where Ritchie and Yager are both ahead of him in terms of experience there, and maybe that's something that ends up happening. But I think in terms of pure play, pure pace, Berkly Catton has so much to offer. Of course, as an 8th overall pick by Seattle, he's somebody that I think will be a lock for this team. He was great at the World Junior Summer Showcase as well, and just the point production he can have, the offense he can provide, the smarts off the rush. He's somebody that I think will just provide so much value for Canada. They need pace, and Catton brings that, especially in the center position. But last but not least, for my locks on the forward group, I'm going to go with Gavin McKenna in the 2026 NHL draft. I think Gavin McKenna is so special that he's practically a lock for this Canadian team. He's somebody that was just absolutely insane at this last U18 World Juniors, getting 10 goals, 10 assists, 20 points in 7 games. He's going to have a monster season next year of Medicine Hat and kind of be that young Bedard-like figure that just enters the team and automatically puts some great production. I could see him kind of being in a more sheltered role, perhaps in that top 6, but we'll have to wait and see there. Now we move on to the hopefuls tier, guys that I think could end up making it, but I do think have to put the work in to actually make it happen. And there's 4 guys from the 2023 draft who I think will be in the mix pretty consistently. First, you have Riley Heidt, who was one of the more unfortunate cuts from last year. He's somebody that I think if Team Canada has a vendetta against him, might be off the team again, but I think offensively just has too much to bring and has shown too much improvement to leave him off. The big problem is role, and I think that's something that left him off the team last year was if he was good enough offensively to be a top top pair guy, and if he wasn't, maybe there were some holes there defensively that kept him off the team. But I mean, considering the playmaking he's been able to show in the last couple of years, I think there is a role for him, especially on the power play there, and he's somebody that I think will end up making the team. You also got Andrew Cristall, another guy that offensively is really creative leaning and has some big holes defensively. I think he has less chances than Riley Heidt of making it, even though he's right up there. I think there are bigger holes in his game defensively than Heidt has, but I think that's something that might deter Canada from making that pick in the end. You also got Denver Berkly, who is somebody that I have loved throughout his time playing hockey. He's just so much fun and has been so much fun with London. He's somebody that was great at this last World Junior Summer Showcase, showing so many good versatile tools, and his improvements in the penalty killing ability, the improvements in the play driving and the intensity of his game. He's somebody that, even though he's on a smaller side, I think could absolutely have a bottom six role with this Canadian team and be pretty comfortable doing it. And then last but not least, I got Colby Barlow, who I think is somebody that we shouldn't count out. There has been some injuries, some inconsistencies throughout the last couple of years, and this last year wasn't really the greatest for him. He got 40 goals, 18 assists in 58 games, so a little bit one-dimensional offensively there. But I think he is somebody that if they really trust the offense that he can provide, the goal scoring he can provide, then he's somebody that I think could maybe fit his way inside a middle six power play role. Again, I think the power play could be really interesting this year at Canada if they decide to go more offensive, but I think Barlow is still in the mix. Now we move on to the 2024 draft here, and this is where it gets really interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of 2024 guys on this roster. First, you got Beckett, Sennecke, of course, third overall pick by the Anaheim Ducks. He's somebody that doesn't have the most international experience, only has a World Hockey Championship back in 2023, but I think with how much he's improved in his overall game offensively, the height difference that he's had, he's somebody that I could absolutely see being a fixture on that top nine. You also got Cayden Lindstrom, who I think is a little bit more of a maybe, but I think has the potential to absolutely be there. Again, I think he has to prove himself very well in the first half this next year Bjarnason has. He's somebody that had some major injuries last year, but he does have some Hlinka Gretzky Cup experience with Canada, and I think that will propel him. I think at least he'll get a bottom six role, but I could see him pushing up, especially if he's going to be a center. Maybe there's a spot for him there, but I think most likely he's on the wing, at least if he wants to get higher up in the lineup. You also got Iginla, who I think nobody should count out whatsoever. He's somebody that I think could be a real surprise on this team. There are some predictions out there having him out of the team, and I just don't know if the intensity he brings with the pro traits being an Iginla, I just feel like Hockey Canada is going to be all over that, as they should. He's somebody that I think could be great on the bottom six, could be great as a complementary piece in the top six. Basically, anywhere you put him, I think he'd be just fine, and I think that's going to be a very strong trait for him going into this tournament. And then also somebody that was good at the World Junior Summer Showcase, Jet Luchenko. He's somebody that was solid there, and I think considering Team Canada's kind of need for a fourth-line centerman, I think Luchenko fits a lot of the boxes there with the smarts, with the IQ, with the play driving he has, the playmaking he can provide. He's somebody that I think could be a sneaky pick for this team as well. A couple players that I also think have an outside chance. Ritchie has a ton of Team Canada experience. Hlinka Gretzky, World Hockey Championship, U18 World Juniors, and he's played pretty great in almost every single one of them. I don't think he makes the team, but I do think he gets an invite. I do think he potentially gets in the mix, and don't be surprised if he maybe wins an extra spot or maybe even a fourth line spot. It's a really competitive team this year, but Ritchie, I think, could end up making it. If not, I think next year could be his year. And then last but not least, I got Cole Baudouin. I think Baudouin and Luchenko might be fighting for that fourth line center spot, especially if there were to be an injury. I think Baudouin would be really interesting at that fourth line center spot. He's somebody with the intensity, with the absolutely incredible board play. He's somebody that I think could be pretty good as that fourth line center for Canada if Luchenko were to have an injury or one of their top nine guys were to have an injury. If he could come in, fill in that spot, I think he could be pretty good at it, be that versatile forechecking force that Canada always loves in their bottom six. Now, we talked about the locks, the hopefuls for this Team Canada roster, but we're going to get into the lineups here in a second and how I see each of the lines shaping out. But first, I want to talk about today's sponsor in BetUS. Now, when the World Juniors come up, they're going to have a lot of odds for every single game and, of course, who ends up winning it. But as of right now, with the NHL season on the horizon, there's a bunch of stuff with the NFL preseason coming up and NFL season on the horizon to make your picks on. And, of course, while we're still in the offseason, they got odds on the Stanley Cup winners, all the trophies as well, regular season points too. A lot of options there to make your picks before the season starts to win big. You, of course, factor in the 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000, the fantastic customer service and excellent payouts too, and BetUS is the place to be, especially with this next NHL season starting up here soon. But now getting into the lineup predictions and starting out with the top line here for Team Canada for this next World Juniors, I see it starting out with Easton Cowan as the first line left wing. Centering the line will be Brayden, Yager, and on the right, I think will be Beckett, Beckett, Sennecke. Now, you have the returnees in Calum and Yager, which I think just makes a lot of sense. Calum at that level I think can play, and Yager was able to show very well at last year's World Juniors. I think he'll be the top line center this year, but I think Beckett, Sennecke as well is a very underrated pick for the top line right wing. There's not a lot of wingers projected for this Canadian team that are actually right shots. I think Sennecke as a natural right wing will fit in pretty well, and even though it might be sheltered a little bit by Yager and Calum, I think will be good in that role. And that first line just has a good diverse amount of pace, of shooting ability, and Yager especially, and intensity, and I like it quite a bit. Now we move on to the second line, but this one is going to be started by Gavin McKenna. To me, I think he will be inside that top six. I think centering that second line will be Berkly, Catton, who I think is just going to rise up continually throughout the training camp, throughout the entire tournament to be a top six centerman on this team. And then I got Cayden Lindstrom on the right wing, and he is a left shot, so it's not the perfect situation, but he can be versatile throughout the entire lineup. I think Lindstrom, though, brings some much needed size to this line. In McKenna and Berkly Catton's case, they're not really going to be using their physicality too much. In Lindstrom's case, though, he can provide a lot of pace, enter the zone well with his size, bring some big hits. To me, I think this line also brings some good diversity. You bring Gavin McKenna as the excellent rush player, Berkly Catton as the playmaking IQ decider, and then Cayden Lindstrom as the more physical force with some great top-end talents, and honestly, that could be a great first line even. But now we go on to the bottom six with the third line, and this is where we're going to start to see a little bit more diverse overall play within the lineup. And starting that out is Denver Barkey, who I think is going to be in that bottom six pretty solidified. I think he'll be a left wing here, but I think he could play center if he really needs to. He could be in the penalty kill. He can be in all situations. I think Barkey is going to be an extremely valuable player for this Canadian team, and being on that third line is no slouch whatsoever. I think centering that line will be Calum Ritchie. You could have him as the first line center, and I think you maybe could swap Yager and Ritchie if you really wanted to, but I think Ritchie will still be an excellent center for this team. Again, with the playmaking he provides, the vision that he has offensively, there's a lot to like there. And on the right side, I think will be Matthew Wood. You also could make the case that Wood could be on the first line considering his experience and how good he was, but I think Sennecke and Lindstrom are both going to show up very well. In Wood's case, though, as a sniper, as a pure goal scorer, I think he's somebody that, especially with Ritchie, is going to be very interesting. With Barkey doing the dirty work, Ritchie as the playmaker, and Wood as the finisher, there's still a lot to like there, and that still could be a first line. But now going on to the fourth line, which I love quite a bit. Starting us out is Riley Heidt, who I think will just be able to make it. Even though he's on the fourth line here, he will be the main offensive driver. I think for Canada, it is okay for them if they have one more offensive leaning guy on the fourth line, as long as they have a little bit more balance within that fourth line, which we'll get into. But in Heidt's case, I think he should make the team. I think he should be on that power play, and I'm hopeful that he ends up making it. Centering that line, though, will be Jet Luchenko. Again, you could have Cole Baudouin here, but I think Luchenko is the early favorite here with the IQ he has, the maturity, and I absolutely love to see that. But on the right wing here will be Iginla. I just don't see a situation where Iginla is not on this roster, not in the lineup in some capacity. He just brings too many great traits and too much that is going to be so valuable on a bottom six. He's somebody that, yeah, might be on the right side where he maybe should be on the left wing, but I don't think it'll be a massive problem with the determination he has. He's going to be the perfect fourth liner for this team, and maybe even could rise up to the top six if they need a complementary piece. Now going on to the extra for the lineup, I do see that being Carson Rakoff. It could very well be Riley Heidt, and you could switch those two potentially. But I think Rakoff was just kind of in no man's land with last year's team, and I think that could very well happen this year. He just has to have the right fit and really show well in training camp, or else that opportunity might not come. I hope it does, though, because the goal scoring there can still be electric. Now, some people might be confused that Bradley Nadeau isn't on my roster, and I think that's because he'll kind of be like the Zach Benson of last year, where he pops off pretty well in the first half of Carolina. We see what happens after that, but I think Carolina ends up keeping him on the roster and keeping him off the World Junior team. Now, going on to the defensemen, though, there's a lot fewer players that I think will be in contention for these spots, not because there's not some good players here, but mostly because I think the good players are already pretty locked in. You have the returnees in Oliver Bonk and Tanner Molendyk, who will likely be that top pair on the left side and the right side, respectively. But then I think coming out of the 2024 draft, the two locks are Zayne Parekh and Sam Dickinson. Parekh especially showed up well in the World Junior Summer Showcase, but I think especially with the offense he provides, Canada could really use a top power play force, and I think Parekh can be that. Bonk can be that as well, but I think Parekh could really dominate in that area. And Sam Dickinson, especially as a lefty, they're a little bit thinner on that side, and Dickinson, I think especially, will have that top, that potential middle pair locked in. But now we go into the hopefuls, and there's really only a few from the 2024 draft who I think will be in the mix. I put Carter Yakemchuk in this tier, mostly because I think the power play might be be a little bit of a difference maker. You already have Parekh, you already have Bonk, and you could make the case as well for Sam Dickinson. I think Yakemchuk will still end up making the team, but I think Canada might look at that and say, we have enough offensive D. We want to go for more defense, which Yakemchuk, of course, that is his biggest weakness with that and the skating, but I do think he ends up making the team. You also got Charlie Elik. If they want to go for more defense, he could be on the team. And Henry Muse as well is somebody that has had a lot of Canadian experience. Hlinka Gretzky, World Hockey Challenge, U18 World Juniors. He's been through all of it and was pretty decent at this last U18 World Juniors as a pretty big quarterback of the power play as well. He's someone that could maybe fit into that team potentially, but I would say pretty unlikely. Then we go into the 2023 draft D, who I think could be in the mix. We got Noah Chadwick, who has been a favorite of mine since he was drafted. 6'4" D with Lethbridge now. As a 6th round pick, he's somebody that I think has been really solid over the last couple of years, and defensively could be a really interesting pick for this Canadian team. Andrew Gibson is somebody that I think will also factor in. He's somebody that I think will be an extra at the very least. Had a great World Junior Summer Showcase, just pretty responsible in all 3 zones. I think that's something that Canada will admire. You also got Etienne Morin if they want more of a physical defenseman, though I think his size not being too large is something that might deter them. You also got Sawyer Mineo, who is somebody that was really looking good with Zayne Parekh at the World Junior Summer Showcase. That might bump him up into a spot, honestly. And he's somebody that, with that left side being a little bit thin, could easily win a spot. Then I would go on to the 2 maybe unlikely ones in Boeke and Caden Price. 2 guys a little bit more puck moving, a little bit more one-dimensional in that way. But I think, especially in Akey's case, he's somebody that with the injuries, I think is probably on the outside looking in, and also not with a lot of Hockey Canada experience either. I just don't think he's going to make it this year. But now going on to the defensive lineups and the pairs here for Team Canada, it should come as no surprise that Molendyk Bonk will be the top pairing. Left D, right D, both returning. It's pretty much a lock at this point. After that, though, is where things get extraordinarily interesting, because I think with the Parekh connection, Sawyer Mineo is going to end up winning that middle pair spot. He's, of course, a 3rd round pick by Vancouver. Just really responsible, really solid, especially defending speed on the rush. And that's something that I think is going to be a massive hole for Canada in this next team. And I think Mineo will hope to fill that defensively. And of course, you got Zayne Parekh as his partner, who will be the offensive juggernaut on this team, really just pushing play in every single direction. For the 3rd pair, I think they'll want to go for a mix of different players. I think Sam Dickinson will end up winning that 3rd pair left D spot. He's somebody that with the puck playing ability, the physical play that he can have, the skating prowess, there's a lot to like there with Dickinson, even though he's had some iffy moments throughout the last year. And I think his D partner will end up being Andrew Gibson. I think especially in the bottom pair, Canada's going to look for defense. They're going to look for steadiness, and Andrew Gibson does bring that. I think that leaves Carter Yakemchuk as an extra on this team, but I think there is the potential that he is on that bottom pair with Dickinson if they need more offense, if they really want that throughout the lineup. But I just think with how Team Canada thinks, with what they want, I think they're going to go for the defensive edge here in Gibson and give him the role in the end. But I would only be proven wrong, because Yakemchuk Dickinson will be a crazy pair. Now we go into the goaltending, and this is by far the easiest position to talk about with Team Canada, because it's pretty locked in who will be the starter. That will most likely be Scott Razloff, who was on the Team Canada roster last year. Didn't play in any games, but he's somebody that I think with how strong he's been in the CHL, already getting that nod for the World Junior team, I think will be there again. The big story, though, I think will be who is the backup goaltender. You got Carson Bjarnason, who was really good at the World Junior Summer Showcase. He's somebody that has been improving at a solid year last year in the WHL, and of course has that experience at the U18 World Juniors. He's somebody I think could be factoring in, but I think most likely the backup role will be filled by Carter George, another Team Canada favorite and a 2nd round pick by the LA Kings. He was great at the U18 World Juniors last year, a .915 save percentage, a 6-0-0 record. I think because of that pedigree, because of that complete success internationally, George will end up getting the nod and just barely being Canada's backup behind Scott Razloff. But these are my World Junior predictions for Team Canada for 2025. You can go through them all, you can dissect it wherever you want to, but these are my predictions for this next year. And I would love to know your thoughts down below, what you guys agree with, what you guys disagree with, because there are so many options and different routes this Canada team can make. And it's going to be really fascinating to see who gets cut, who actually makes the roster, because, I mean, every year we have some massive surprises. So we'll see what ends up happening again. But I, of course, would love to have you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you guys enjoyed. It helps the channel out a ton. Of course, comment all your thoughts down below and share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online to get the predictions out to them, and click on this card for all of my hockey prospect talk right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I hope you have a beautiful hockey day. And of course, check out BetUS in the description down below to make your own picks on the NHL, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great hockey day, and goodbye.